This submitted dossier is a comprehensive compilation of 2026 market data, detailing the highest-paying skills, salary trends, and remote work opportunities across the rapidly evolving AI and tech landscapes. And honestly, since the source material is exceptionally strong in its data collection, successfully aggregating incredibly dense insights from PwC, Robert Half, and Coursera, we can just bypass the basics today.
Oh, absolutely. The research is already doing the heavy lifting here.
Right, so we are going to dive straight in and calibrate this critique to be high-level and editorial. We'll use the lenses of significance and relevance, angle and originality, and completeness and focus.
Yeah, the goal is really to elevate this work from just a mere collection of trends into a cohesive, predictive thesis.
Exactly. So let's jump right to the first major piece of feedback: elevating the PwC data regarding the professionalized versus democratized job tracks from a single data point into the central organizing framework for the entire piece will exponentially increase the material's impact.
I totally agree. This is absolutely the pivot point for the entire document.
You know what frustrated me reading this, though? The author completely buried the lead.
Yeah, they really did.
They have this massive macroeconomic shift sitting right in their lap, right? The PwC finding that AI is fundamentally fracturing the labor market into a two-track system with a 62% wage premium for professionalized roles.
Which is a staggering number.
It's massive, but right now that world-altering statistic is just hidden halfway down the page. It's literally sandwiched inside a standard listicle of 18 generic skills and remote job postings.
Yeah, that's the main weakness here. They are placing data showing a 163% productivity gain in superstar companies right next to, basic descriptions of customer service or quality assurance.
Right, exactly.
And when you do that, you fail to apply your most powerful insight to the rest of the data. You're leaving the reader to connect the dots entirely on their own, which is a massive missed opportunity for an author trying to establish authority.
So what the author needs to do to fix this is restructure the entire analysis using that two-track divide as the foundational filter.
I like that. A filter for everything.
Yes, they need to categorize every single skill, certification, and salary band listed from their Robert Half and Coursera data into one of those two buckets. Let's define them really quick. The first bucket is the democratized track. These are roles that AI has suddenly made incredibly easy for non-experts to do.
And we need to explicitly explain the why behind the economics there for the reader. If a job is democratized, the barrier to entry evaporates.
Right.
If anyone can do it, the labor supply skyrockets. And what happens? You face immediate downward wage pressure.
Exactly. Downward pressure. Then you have the second bucket, which is the professionalized track. These are roles where AI acts as a massive force multiplier, but the job still requires intense human judgment.
Which is rare.
Right, because so few people have that high-level judgment, the labor supply is constrained, yielding those massive wage premiums.
So we need to give the author a concrete example of how to execute this. I mean, instead of just listing data analysis and quality assurance sequentially as equal high-income skills, they should explicitly map them to those PwC tracks.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, show the reader how a standard quality assurance role or basic front-end web development might fall into the democratized track and see their salaries drop. Meanwhile, highly complex roles like agentic AI, cloud solutions architecture, or strategic leadership fall firmly into the professionalized track.
So a key theme running through this material seems to be the total destruction of the middle ground. It actually reminds me of the introduction of the spreadsheet in the 1980s.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Think about it. When VisiCalc and Excel hit the market, they completely destroyed the role of the human calculator. You had those giant accounting floors filled with clerks who just tallied numbers all day. Excel democratized that task. It wiped it out.
Right, it just did the math instantly.
But simultaneously, the spreadsheet created the highly paid financial analyst. That was a totally professionalized role that used the new tool to forecast, model, and strategize. We are seeing the exact same dynamic here with AI, just on a global, cross-industry scale.
That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered whether this binary is too rigid.
What do you mean?
Well, if the author applies this strictly, Is there a risk that a role like customer service, which is listed prominently in the Coursera data, gets unfairly pigeonholed?
How so?
I mean, could a single role actually straddle both tracks depending entirely on the worker's use of AI? A basic customer service rep reading from a script is heavily democratized. They are facing automation.
Sure.
But what about a rep using an AI copilot to instantly synthesize a customer's 10-year purchase history, resolve a complex logistics dispute, and upsell a new product in real time? That requires immense emotional intelligence and agility. That becomes the professionalized role.
Okay, I hear you. But if we blur the lines too much, don't we risk leaving the reader confused? I feel like the author needs to draw a hard line in the sand to make the framework useful. If every job is just an "it depends," the thesis kind of loses its teeth, doesn't it?
That's fair. But I think the nuance is the thesis. The author could take the World Economic Forum data, things like analytical thinking, agility, leadership, and reframe them.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Right? Now, the text treats them as just workplace bonuses. They need to be framed as the explicit prerequisites for crossing the chasm from the democratized track into the professionalized track. It's not your job title that saves you, it's your application of those specific human skills.
Okay, yeah, I see your point. But if survival means reaching that professionalized track, that creates a massive brick wall for beginners.
It really does.
Which leads us to our next point, reconciling the contradiction between the severe talent shortage and the increasing seniorization of junior roles will provide a highly original and actionable roadmap for career switchers.
Yeah, this is where the macroeconomic theory hits the very harsh pavement of reality.
Let's look closely at the section discussing the entry-level market because this is where the author highlights a brutal catch-22.
It's a rough market out there.
It really is. The weakness here is that the material highlights a massive talent shortage, citing 3.5 jobs to one candidate, while simultaneously noting that AI-exposed entry-level roles have grown by 35%, but they now require traditionally senior-level skills.
Yeah, employers want leadership, judgment, and creativity from day one.
Exactly.
And it is incredibly frustrating to read because the text states this paradox perfectly, but it completely leaves the reader hanging. I mean, it offers no clear mechanism for how a junior candidate with 0 years of corporate experience is actually supposed to demonstrate senior-level judgment.
Right. The author's current solution is to just list entry-level certificates like the CompTIA Security Plus or the Google Data Analytics Certificate.
Which is not enough.
Not at all. It doesn't solve this specific barrier. A certificate just proves you know the syntax of a program. It does not prove you possess complex judgment. We need a better solution for the protagonist of this dossier. You know, the person desperately trying to break into the industry.
The suggestion to fix this is to shift the actionable advice for beginners away from passive certification collection and pivot entirely toward active, judgment-proving portfolio strategies.
Tell me more about that.
Well, the author has fantastic insights later in the piece from the Job Canon and Ostrify sources. They just need to pull those forward to build a specific framework for how an entry-level candidate can literally manufacture senior-level experience through public building and problem scoping.
Oh, I love that phrase, manufacture a senior-level experience. So to give a concrete example of how to write this, in the sections discussing the Google UX design or Meta front-end certificates, the author needs to add a heavy caveat.
Definitely.
Tell the reader explicitly that these certs only provide baseline literacy. They are the starting line, not the finish line. Then, incorporate the Ostrify portfolio strategy. Advise the reader to build something real, like a support triage bot or an internal knowledge assistant.
Yes. And emphasize that the code itself isn't the portfolio. I mean, anybody can copy-paste code now.
Right, ChatGPT can write the code.
Exactly. The real portfolio is the documentation. The candidate must explicitly document their decision-making process. They need to document their edge case handling and, most importantly, their failed iterations.
Wait, why the failures specifically?
Because explaining why something failed shows senior-level reasoning.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right? If you document that an AI hallucinated a fake refund policy during a test, and you explain how you adjusted the model's temperature or constrained the context window to fix it, you are proving analytical thinking. You are proving resilience.
That's brilliant.
frame this specific style of portfolio documentation as the exact method to prove the senior-level judgment that the PwC barometer says employers are demanding.
It reminds me of when I was first breaking into publishing. I couldn't get a junior editor role because I didn't have acquisition experience. It was maddening.
The classic catch-22.
Exactly. So I created a mock imprint. I acquired public domain works, edited them, designed them, and bound them myself, documenting every single editorial choice I made. That's how I bypassed the experience trap. The author needs to tell job seekers to do exactly that with AI.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of industry gatekeeping? The author leans heavily on the job canon personality frameworks, pointing out that roles like machine learning engineering now require high conscientiousness and extremely high openness.
Right, the personality matrix.
Does the reliance on these personality tests risk gatekeeping the industry? If we tell people they need a specific personality to survive this seniorization, are we just shutting the door on them?
I actually don't think it's gatekeeping. I think it's just survival.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if a junior developer is suddenly expected to architect complex systems instead of just fixing minor bugs under a senior dev supervision, the cognitive load is immense. Their tolerance for ambiguity has to be sky high.
That's true.
Exploring that reality makes the critique so much more empathetic to the reader. They aren't struggling because they aren't smart, they're struggling because the psychological burden of entry-level work has quadrupled.
That is a great philosophical depth the author could weave into this section. And that psychological reality, that need for deep, complex judgment, perfectly sets up the most ambiguous, high-stakes role mentioned in the entire dossier.
Yes, absolutely. Which brings us to the next structural fix. Defining the exact boundaries between basic prompt literacy and high-end AI agent development will eliminate the confusion surrounding the astronomical hourly rates quoted in the text.
Yeah, this section of the text is currently reflecting the market's confusion a bit too literally.
It really is. The weakness here is that the dossier presents prompt engineering in wildly contradictory ways. In the Coursera and Job Canon sections, it is described as a basic foundational skill, essentially just interacting with ChatGPT or Claude.
Just typing in plain English.
Right. The text implies it is becoming a mandatory requirement for all general workers. But then, a few pages later, the Astrify section suddenly quotes rates of $200 to $400 an hour for prompt engineers.
Which is incredibly jarring. I mean, nobody is paying $400 an hour for someone to type, "Make this email sound more professional," into a chat box.
Exactly. By using the exact same term for someone who writes a basic marketing prompt and someone who architects complex AI systems, the material risks deeply confusing the reader about what skills actually command that $400 an hour premium.
The suggestion to improve this is straightforward. The author needs to explicitly separate the terminology into two distinct tiers.
Okay, what are the tiers?
Tier 1 is AI literacy and prompting, which is a baseline requirement for all knowledge workers. Tier 2 is agentic AI developer, which is the highly paid, deeply technical engineering role.
Ah, that clears it up.
The author has access to the technical data provided in the Pluralsight and Astrify sources. They just need to use that data to draw a hard line in the sand between the two.
I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this. Because right now, the text just lists technical jargon from Pluralsight without explaining it.
Yeah, it's just a wall of terms.
Exactly. As a concrete example for improvement, the author should define the $400 an hour role explicitly. Point out that these professionals are building model context protocol servers, they are using orchestration frameworks like LangChain or Llama Index, they're integrating retrieval augmented generation and writing the glue code in Python.
Wait, back up. Before we tell the author to just list all those terms, let's explain what that actually means for our listeners so the author can explain it to their readers. We can't just throw out retrieval augmented generation and expect the career switch to understand why it's worth $400 an hour.
Fair point. We need to apply the explain like I'm 5 rule here. How should the author describe these tools?
Well, think of it like building a company. Basic prompting is just talking to an incredibly smart intern who doesn't know anything about your specific business.
Right.
But building an agentic AI system, that's building a whole department. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, is essentially giving the AI a VIP library card to your company's private filing cabinets. Instead of guessing, it pulls actual secure facts from your database.
Oh, I like the library card analogy.
Yeah, and then LangChain is like the project manager. It coordinates different AI workers, telling one to research and another to write. And Model Context Protocol, or MCP, is the universal translator that lets the AI actually talk to your local tools, like your Slack or your GitHub.
That makes total sense. So the $400 an hour isn't for typing prompts, it's for wiring the library card, the project manager, and the universal translator all together using Python.
Exactly. Furthermore, the author should frame the Askerify pricing model, which shows a shift from hourly billing to fixed-fee retainers based on documented ROI, as the ultimate capstone of the professionalized track we discussed in the first critique.
That really does tie it all together nicely.
It proves the central thesis, right? The true value in the professionalized track isn't the technical prompt. The value is the business outcome.
Is the connection between A and B fully established in the material, or is that an area to potentially bolster? Because honestly, looking at everything we just discussed, I would push the author to question the terminology itself.
You mean challenge the phrase prompt engineering?
Yes. I mean, is prompt engineer already an obsolete legacy term for 2026? Should the text advocate for abandoning the title entirely?
It really might be.
If the work is wiring up LangChain and RAG, maybe the author should tell their readers to start calling themselves an agentic systems architect to better reflect the Pluralsight data.
Oh, that would be a very bold, predictive stance for the author to take. And that is exactly what we want. It moves the material from just passively reporting on trends to actually shaping the industry narrative.
Absolutely.
If you tell a reader to stop calling themselves a prompt engineer and start calling themselves an agentic systems architect, you are immediately upgrading their market positioning. You are aligning them with the reality of what businesses are actually buying. Businesses buy systems that solve workflow problems, not text prompts.
Well, this has been a fantastic exploration of a very dense, high-quality submission. We challenged some paradigms, we dug into the mechanics of the market, and I think we've given the author a really solid blueprint.
We definitely have.
To quickly recap our three main structural takeaways for the listener. First, use the PwC two-track labor divide, the democratized versus professionalized tracks, as the macro framework to filter all the skills and salary data. Explain why wages are moving the way they are.
Second, solve the entry-level seniorization paradox by moving the reader away from passive certificate collection. Emphasize active judgment-heavy portfolio building, specifically documenting the failures and edge cases of an AI build to prove senior-level reasoning.
And third, clearly separate basic prompt literacy from the highly technical agentic AI developer role. Break down the jargon like RAG and LangChain so readers understand the mechanics, and challenge the legacy terminology of prompt engineering altogether.
The base research here is incredibly strong. It is really rare to see this level of comprehensive data aggregation across so many different massive reports.
Absolutely. To the listener who submitted this dossier, your foundation is rock solid. We invite you to apply these structural frameworks, reorganize that fantastic data around these narrative pillars, and submit your revised piece back to the critique for further review.
We would love to see how it evolves.
When we look at a career map, we want clear topography. But in 2026, the ink is disappearing. The best thing you can do for your readers isn't to pretend the old map still works. It's to hand them the pen and teach them how to draw the new one.